I sat on the porch of our craftsman-style house, staring at the horizon as the sun dipped below the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was funny how something so beautiful could feel so hollow now. Asheville had been my sanctuary for years, a place where I built my career, fell in love, and thought I'd grow old with Sarah. But that dream was crumbling faster than I could piece it back together. My name is Liam Hawthorne, and until recently, I thought I had everything figured out. I was an architect, good at what I did, maybe even great. My designs graced magazine covers, and clients lined up to work with me. But success came at a cost. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being present. For Sarah, for myself, for anyone who mattered. And now she was gone. She walked out after I pushed her away one too many times. What she didn't know, and what I couldn't bring myself to tell her, was that I wasn't just distant. I was dying. Slowly, silently, but surely. The headache started months ago. Small annoyances I chalked up to stress or lack of sleep. Then came the memory lapses. Forgetting appointments, misplacing keys, calling clients by the wrong names. At first, I laughed it off, blaming my overworked brain. But when I got lost driving home from the office one night, panic set in. That's when I went to see Dr. Patel. He was calm, professional, and utterly devastating. Early onset Alzheimer's, he said, like it was just another item on a grocery list. The words hit me like a freight train. Alzheimer's? Me? No, not possible. I was only 38. I ran 5 miles every morning, ate kale salads, and meditated. Well, sometimes. How could this happen? When I asked if there was any mistake, he shook his head. We'll run more tests, but based on your symptoms and family history. Family history. That's when it clicked. My dad hadn't just lost his mind in his 50s. He'd been sick, too. I never connected the dots because no one talked about it. Denial runs deep in my family. I left the clinic numb, clutching a pamphlet titled Living with Alzheimer's. Living? Was that really the word they wanted to use? Because all I felt was dead inside. I didn't tell Sarah. Not right away. Hell, not even weeks later. Telling her meant admitting I was broken, and I couldn't do that. Not to her. Not to us. So instead, I buried myself in work, pouring hours into finalizing designs for a skyscraper in Charlotte. If I stayed busy enough, maybe I could outrun this thing. Maybe I could pretend it wasn't real. But pretending doesn't change reality. Every time I forgot her favorite coffee order or missed another one of her gallery openings, I saw the disappointment in her eyes. She tried to talk to me, to reach me, but I shut her down every time. You're always working, she'd say, her voice tinged with frustration. Do you even care about us anymore? Of course I cared. More than anything. But how do you explain something like this without destroying the person you love most? It all came to a head one rainy Tuesday evening. Sarah had spent weeks preparing for her biggest art show yet, a collection inspired by our life together. She begged me to come, promised it would mean the world to her. But I blew her off again, citing some fabricated emergency at the office. Truthfully, I was scared. Scared of seeing her shine while I faded into nothingness. When I finally got home late that night, she was waiting for me. Her arms were crossed, her jaw tight. Why do you keep doing this, Liam? She demanded, tears streaming down her face. Why won't you let me in? I'm trying to protect you. I snapped, immediately regretting the words. Protect her? From what? Myself? She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. And maybe she didn't. If you can't be honest with me, she said quietly, then maybe we shouldn't be together. And just like that, she walked out, packed a bag, kissed my cheek, and left. I stood there frozen, listening to the sound of her car fading into the distance. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. Days turned into weeks, and still, I didn't call her. Pride, fear, guilt. It was a toxic cocktail that kept me paralyzed. Instead, I threw myself into finishing the Charlotte project, working late nights and avoiding mirrors because I couldn't stand to look at myself. Mara called me constantly, worried sick. You need to tell her, Liam, she insisted during one of our endless phone arguments. This isn't fair to either of you. Fair. I shot back. What part of this is fair? You think she'll stick around once she knows the truth? She deserves better than watching me fall apart. Mara sighed, exasperated. Maybe, but she also deserves to decide for herself. Her words haunted me. Did Sarah deserve to know? Yes. Did I have the courage to tell her? Not yet. Without Sarah, the house felt cavernous, echoing with memories I couldn't escape. I found her sketchbook tucked under the couch one afternoon, a spiral-bound notebook filled with drawings of us. There we were, laughing over breakfast, dancing barefoot in the kitchen, holding hands under the stars. Each page was a reminder of what I'd lost, what I might never get back. That's when I realized something. Sarah wasn't just my wife. She was my anchor, my safe harbor. Without her, I was adrift, drowning in a sea of uncertainty. But telling her the truth meant risking everything. Could I handle losing her twice? As I flipped through the pages of her sketchbook, one drawing caught my eye. It was unfinished, just a rough outline of two figures standing side by side. In the corner, she'd written a single word: hope. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for us. Mara showed up unannounced one Saturday morning, her arms laden with groceries and a scowl that could cut glass. "You look like hell," she announced as she marched into the kitchen. She wasn't wrong. I hadn't shaved in days. My clothes were wrinkled, and there was an empty pizza box on the counter next to a half-empty bottle of whiskey. Thanks for the pep talk, I muttered, slumping onto a stool. She set the bags down and turned to face me, hands on her hips. "This isn't you, Liam. You're better than this. Or at least you used to be." I wanted to argue, to tell her she didn't understand, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I confessed everything: the diagnosis, the lies, the fear. For the first time since Dr. Patel dropped the bombshell, I let someone see me crack. Mara listened silently, her expression softening as I spoke. When I finished, she pulled me into a hug so tight it hurt. "You're not alone in this," she said firmly. "But you need to tell Sarah. She loves you, and if she doesn't already know something's wrong, she will soon." Her words lingered long after she left, echoing in my mind like a mantra. Tell Sarah. But how? Where do you even begin a conversation like that? Sarah's absence left holes everywhere. In the bed we once shared, in the quiet mornings over coffee, in the laughter that used to fill the house. But it also gave me space to reflect, to see things from her perspective. I remember the way her shoulders tensed when I canceled plans last minute, the disappointment in her voice when I forgot important dates. How many times had I dismissed her concerns, brushing them off as overreactions? Too many. One day, while cleaning out the attic, I stumbled across an old shoebox filled with mementos from our early days together. Ticket stubs, dried flowers, love notes scribbled on napkins. One note in particular made my chest ache. "Liam, you make me believe in forever." Forever. That's what she thought we had. What I promised her. And now I couldn't even promise tomorrow. I started Googling support groups for people with Alzheimer's, desperate for answers, for guidance. That's how I found Dr. Elena Reyes, a therapist specializing in neurodegenerative diseases. Our first session was awkward. I'm not exactly the sharing type, but by the end, I felt lighter, like maybe I wasn't completely screwed. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was supposed to meet Mara for lunch, but I got distracted trying to find my wallet and ended up leaving the house without my keys. By the time I realized my mistake, clouds had rolled in and rain was pouring down in sheets. I stood on the porch, soaked and shivering, cursing myself for being so careless. When Mara arrived 20 minutes later, she took one look at me and sighed. "This is getting dangerous, Liam. You can't keep living like this." "I know." I snapped, though I didn't really mean to. "Trust me, I know." That night, as I sat wrapped in a blanket with a cup of tea, I thought about Sarah. Would she have laughed at my stupidity, or rolled her eyes and handed me a spare key? Either way, she'd have been there. She'd have taken care of me, no questions asked. The realization hit me hard. I needed her, not just because of the Alzheimer's, but because she made life worth living. Without her, I was just existing. Dr. Reyes suggested I join a local support group, which I resisted at first. The idea of sitting in a circle with strangers, bare in my soul, sounded like torture, but desperation pushed me out the door one chilly Tuesday evening. The room was small, with mismatched chairs arranged in a loose circle. Most of the attendees were older, their faces lined with years of struggle. Then there was Gregory, a wiry man in his 60s with wild gray hair and a guitar slung over his shoulder. He introduced himself as a retired musician who'd been diagnosed 5 years ago. "What's the secret to surviving this?" I asked during the question portion, surprising even myself with the question. Gregory chuckled. "No secrets, kid. Just moments. Good ones, bad ones, it's all part of the ride. Hold on to the good ones as long as you can." His words stuck with me. Moments. That's all any of us really have, isn't it? Maybe it was time I stopped focusing on the future I wouldn't have and started appreciating the present I still did. Inspired by Gregory's advice, I decided to write Sarah a letter. It felt safer than calling her, less confrontational. Sitting at the dining table with a pen and paper, I poured out everything. The diagnosis, the fear, the guilt, the love that hadn't faded despite everything. By the time I signed my name, tears blurred the ink. I folded the letter carefully, slid it into an envelope, and placed it on the mantel. But I couldn't bring myself to send it. What if she hated me? What if she never forgave me? Instead, I tucked it into a drawer, telling myself I'd decide later. Deep down, though, I knew I was stalling. Facing Sarah meant facing myself, and I wasn't ready for that yet. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. I was in the backyard, attempting to fix the broken gate, a task Sarah had nagged me about for months, when I heard footsteps behind me. "Liam?" Her voice sent a jolt through me. I turned slowly, my heart pounding. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her cheeks paler, but her eyes were the same warm brown I fell in love with. "What are you doing here?" I managed, my voice hoarse. She hesitated, clutching a tote bag tightly. "I came to get some things, but I also wanted to see you." We stared at each other for a moment, neither of us speaking. Finally, she broke the silence. "You've changed, Liam. Something's wrong. Tell me." And just like that, the dam broke. I told her everything. The diagnosis, the lies, the fear of losing her. She listened quietly, tears streaming down her face, until I ran out of words. When I finished, she whispered, "Why didn't you trust me?" I didn't have an answer, not one that made sense. Anyway, Sarah stayed that night, sleeping on the couch instead of in our bed. It felt like a metaphor for where we stood, close enough to touch, but worlds apart emotionally. Over the next few days, we tiptoed around each other, both unsure how to bridge the gap between us. She helped me organize the house, labeling drawers and setting reminders on my phone. Small gestures, but they meant the world. Still, tension simmered beneath the surface. "You lied to me," she said one evening, her voice trembling. "You let me walk away thinking I'd failed you somehow. I didn't want you to feel trapped," I admitted. "I thought I was protecting you." "Well, you weren't," she shot back. "You were pushing me away. Again." Her words stung, but they were true. I'd spent so long trying to shield her from pain that I'd forgotten love isn't about protection. It's about partnership. On Dr. Rhea's recommendation, we attended a memory workshop designed for couples dealing with dementia. The exercises were simple but powerful. Creating photo albums, writing letters to our future selves, sharing stories from our past. At first, it felt forced, like playing pretend at happiness. But as the hours passed, something shifted. During one activity, we were asked to describe our favorite memory together. Sarah talked about our honeymoon in Italy, the way the sun glinted off Lake Como as we sipped wine on the terrace. I smiled, remembering how carefree we'd been back then. "My turn," I said softly. "My favorite memory is simpler. It's waking up every morning knowing you're beside me." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in months, we held each other without hesitation. Just as things started to feel stable again, a new bombshell hit. Sarah stumbled across some medical documents I'd left on the dining table. Papers detailing my family history, including the genetic mutation linked to Alzheimer's. Her face went pale as she read through them. "Liam," she said, her voice trembling. Is this hereditary? I nodded slowly, bracing myself for the questions I knew were coming. Yeah, there's a chance it could be passed down. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. And you didn't think to tell me? What about kids, Liam? Did you ever stop to consider that? The accusation in her tone cut deeper than I expected. Kids had always been part of our plan, or at least they were supposed to be. We'd talk about it endlessly during those early years. 2 or 3, maybe even 4, a house full of laughter and chaos. But now the idea felt like a cruel joke. I didn't want to burden you with that. I admitted quietly. I don't know what I thought. Maybe that if we didn't talk about it, it wouldn't matter. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It does matter, Liam. Don't you get that? This isn't just your life. It's mine, too. You can't keep shutting me out. She stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with the weight of her words. For the first time, I realized how selfish I'd been. Not just in hiding my diagnosis, but in assuming I could carry this burden alone. Love wasn't meant to be carried alone. Mara insisted on hosting a family dinner to clear the air. She claimed it was about reconnecting, but I suspected she just wanted to meddle. Still, I agreed to go, hoping it might ease some of the tension between Sarah and me. The evening started off fine. Polite conversation, good food, 4 smiles all around. But when Mara brought up the topic of genetic testing, everything unraveled. You should look into it, Mara said pointedly, glancing at Sarah. It's better to know than to wonder. Sarah shot her a sharp look. Maybe I don't want to know. Maybe I'm tired of being blindsided by secrets. The room fell silent. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Sarah, I'm sorry, I said, my voice cracking. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to handle any of this. And whose fault is that? She shot back. You act like you're the only one suffering, Liam, but you're not. I'm scared, too. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of what comes next. And I'm scared of making decisions without knowing the whole truth. Her honesty left me reeling. For so long, I'd focused on protecting her from pain. But in doing so, I'd forgotten she was strong enough to face it. Stronger than me, probably. By the end of the night, we'd both retreated into silence, unsure whether our relationship could survive the cracks widening between us. After the disastrous dinner, Sarah returned to Charleston, saying she needed space to think. I understood her decision, even respected it, but it didn't make the loneliness any easier to bear. Without her, the house felt colder, emptier, like a museum of memories I couldn't access anymore. In an effort to distract myself, I threw myself into therapy and support groups. Dr. Reyes encouraged me to focus on creating meaningful moments rather than dwelling on the future I couldn't control. It was advice I struggled to embrace, but I tried. I started journaling, documenting my thoughts and feelings in case I forgot them later. Some days, the words flowed easily. Others, they felt hollow, like echoes of someone I used to be. Meanwhile, Sarah spent her days painting furiously, channeling her emotions onto canvas. Evelyn told me she was working on a series inspired by our marriage: love, loss, hope, fear. The thought of her turning our pain into art filled me with a strange mix of pride and guilt. One afternoon, Mara called to check in. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. "Honestly, not great." I admitted. "I miss her, Mara, more than anything." "She misses you, too," she replied, "but she needs time to process everything." Give her that. Easier said than done. When Sarah finally returned to Asheville weeks later, she came with a proposition. "Let's create memories," she said simply, "while we still can." At first, I wasn't sure what she meant. Then she showed me a list. Places we'd always talk about visiting but never did. Activities we dreamed of trying together. Hiking in the Pisgah National Forest. Painting murals in the garage. Visiting the Biltmore estate at sunset. "It's not about fixing things," she explained. "It's about living them. Fully. Together." So that's what we did. Every weekend. We embarked on small adventures, rediscovering the joy of simply being with each other. One day, we rented kayaks and paddled across a glassy lake. laughing as we tipped over mid-race. Another, we drove to a roadside diner famous for its peach cobbler and ate until we couldn't move. Through it all, there were moments of sadness, times when I forgot where we were or stumbled over her name, but Sarah never let me dwell on them. Instead, she reminded me of who we were beneath the illness. Two people who loved each other fiercely, flaws and all. Inspired by our outings, Sarah proposed an idea that took my breath away. "Let's document everything," she said one evening as we sat on the porch watching fireflies dance in the twilight. "Videos, photos, letters. Anything we can save for later. For when I forget?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Yes, and for me, so I'll always remember us, too." We bought a camcorder and started recording daily snippets of our lives. Cooking breakfast, walking the dog, reading aloud from old books. Sometimes we interviewed each other, asking silly questions like, "What's your favorite color?" Or serious ones like, "What do you love most about us?" Watching the footage later, I marveled at how alive we seemed, how much joy we'd managed to reclaim despite everything. It was proof that love wasn't erased by memory. It endured, even in fragments. As my condition progressed, simple tasks became increasingly difficult. Remembering appointments, following recipes, finding my way home, all of it required help. At first, I resisted relying on others, clinging to the illusion of independence. But Sarah refused to let me isolate myself. With Mara's assistance, we built a network of friends, family, and healthcare professionals to support us. Neighbors offered rides to appointments. Colleagues sent care packages filled with notes of encouragement. Even Gregory from the support group stopped by occasionally, bringing his guitar and playing songs that made us laugh and cry in equal measure. For the first time in months, I felt surrounded, not suffocated, but uplifted. Sarah joked that we were building our own little village, and maybe she was right. Love, I realized, wasn't just between two people. It was shared, multiplied, sustained by those willing to hold you up when you couldn't stand alone. There were bad days, of course. Days when frustration boiled over because I couldn't find the right word or recognize familiar faces. On those days, Sarah held me close, whispering, "It's okay. You're still here. That's all that matters." Other days were better, filled with laughter, music, and stolen kisses. We celebrated tiny victories, like remembering the names of flowers in the garden or completing a puzzle without losing pieces. Each moment felt precious, fragile, fleeting. One morning, as we sat side by side on the porch swing, Sarah rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you think we'll make it through this?" she asked softly. I kissed the top of her head, inhaling the scent of lavender shampoo she'd always loved. "I don't know," I admitted, "but as long as we're together, I think we'll be okay." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Years passed, and though my memory continued to fade, our bond remained unshaken. Sarah became not just my wife, but my caregiver, my anchor, my everything. She adapted with grace, finding ways to remind me of who I was when I couldn't remember myself. One day, she surprised me with a hardcover book titled Fragments of Us. "We did it," she said, placing it in my hands. Her eyes sparkled with pride, and maybe a little sadness. "It's your story, our story." I flipped through the pages, stunned. Inside were transcripts from our video diaries, photographs of our adventures, sketches she'd drawn during quiet moments. There were letters written by both of us, snippets of conversations captured in her elegant handwriting. It wasn't just a record of my decline. It was a testament to our love, resilience, and hope. The book went on to become something neither of us expected. A bestseller. People reached out from all over the world, sharing their own stories of love, loss, and perseverance. Sarah traveled to conferences and interviews, speaking about the importance of cherishing memories while creating new ones. Through it all, she kept me close, ensuring I was part of every step. But what touched me most was how she framed the project, not as a tragedy, but as a celebration. "This isn't the end of us," she told me one evening as we sat together under the stars. "It's proof that even when pieces fall apart, they can still form something beautiful." One afternoon, while sorting through old files on my laptop, Sarah discovered something unexpected. a folder labeled for Sarah. Curious, she opened it and found dozens of audio recordings I'd secretly made over the years. In them, I spoke directly to her, pouring out my heart in ways I hadn't dared to do in person. "Hey, Sarah," one recording began. My voice was shaky, raw. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm not the man I used to be. Maybe I don't recognize you anymore. Maybe I've forgotten our favorite songs, or the way your laugh sounds like wind chimes. But I want you to know I'll always love you. Even if I can't say it, even if I don't remember why, it's true." Tears streamed down her face as she listened to each message. Some were light-hearted reminders of inside jokes. Others were deeply emotional confessions of gratitude and regret. Together, they formed a mosaic of my soul, preserved for her to hold onto when I no longer could. When she confronted me about the recordings, I looked at her sheepishly. "I wanted to leave you something real," I admitted, "something that wouldn't disappear with me." She hugged me tightly, her tears soaking into my shirt. "You idiot," she whispered. "You already gave me everything." The final scene takes place years later, long after words have slipped away from me entirely. Sarah visits me at a care facility nestled in the hills outside Asheville. The staff greets her warmly. They've come to know her as a woman who brings sunshine into room 12B. Today, she carries a photo album filled with pictures from our life together. When she enters, I'm sitting by the window, staring blankly at the garden below. At first, I don't recognize her. Then, slowly, as she kneels beside me and takes my hand, recognition flickers in my eyes. Not of her name, perhaps, but of her presence, of the warmth, the safety, the love she's always carried with her. "Hi, Liam," she says softly, opening the album. She points to a picture of us on our wedding day. Young, radiant, full of dreams. "Do you remember this?" I shake my head, but I smile. Something about her voice, her touch. It feels familiar, comforting. She flips to another page, showing me a snapshot of us painting the mural in the garage. "And this? Do you remember making art together?" Again, I shake my head, but this time I reach out to trace the image with trembling fingers. A spark of recognition, however faint, lights up my face. Sarah leans closer, pressing her forehead against mine. "It's okay if you don't remember," she murmurs. "I'll always be here to remind you." As she sits beside me, holding my hand, the camera pans to a framed photo on the bedside table. It's the same picture she drew years ago, the unfinished sketch of two figures standing side by side. Beneath it, she's added a caption, "Forever in Pieces." And though I may not recall the details of our life, I feel her love, deep, unwavering, eternal. Because love, I've learned, isn't bound by memory. It lives in spaces between, fragile yet infinite, fleeting yet everlasting.